Greetings, everyone. We're happy you could join us today for the latest in our series of VoltaMX Go webinars. Today, we're going to be showing you some beautiful apps that some of our folks have built using VoltaMX Go and Domino. We're going to have three of our presenters run through each of their examples, and we'll talk about some of the benefits of each. And then if you have questions at any time during this webinar, go ahead and feel free to enter those into the questions panel in your GoToMeeting console there. Don't enter them in the chat because our folks who are monitoring them won't be looking at that. They'll be looking at the questions panel. As I mentioned, this is the latest in our series of webinars that we've been presenting about our VoltMX Go release. This is the second to last one in the series. If you have been unable to attend the ones before, and we do have recordings available for those, and if you have colleagues or other folks you work with who have not yet experienced any of these, there's a QR code that is at the bottom of the slide there they can use to go ahead and register and sign up for the next one. Stay tuned for the next one in the series, which will focus on an early look at VoltScript, currently scheduled for September 27th. And keep an eye on your email for registration details, or if you've already registered for this series, you should be getting a reminder email very, very shortly. Today's presenters are a range of our technical experts from the team here at HCL. Have each one of these folks will go through a demo. Mario Deanna is our senior technical lead for VoltaMX. We have Dai Wen, who's one of our senior technical architects. We also have Keith Farrell, who's another one of our senior technical specialists. And then my name is Gundar, and I'll be running you through the presentation today. Our presentation is going to cover three different applications built using VoltaMX Go and Domino. The first is a contract management application. The second is a training scheduler application. And the third is a health and safety inspection application. These are all based on real customer use cases and business problems that they are trying to accomplish. And each one of these applications is modeled after those. So they'll provide a real world example of how you can build nice, rich UI apps using VoltaMX Go and Domino. We'll wrap it up with some best practices and points of observation to recommend when using the platform. And then we'll go ahead and open it up for the questions at the end. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter those in the questions panel so that we make sure we get to them. So to start us off, I'm going to hand it over to Dai Wen, who's going to take us through his contract management application. So Dai, I'm going to go ahead and hand you presenter rights.
Thank you, Gundar. And let me share my screen. All right, let me know when you can see it.
We can see it, Dai. Go ahead.
Okay, well, welcome and greetings. And what I presented to you today is the Colosseum contract management web application, and it is built using VoltaMX Go. The actual web application is from a customers of ours, and they actually give us two challenges. One is they will give us a Domino DB and its application without any description or without telling what it does. You know, it's our job to figure out what it does, what it contains, and how does it do that, right? And then the second challenge is any asset, any media asset like video will have to come from their repository instead of having to clone that medium, you know, inside our server. Okay, so that's the use case is contract management, the ability to list contract, you know, edit, create, etc. Okay. Now, what I will do first is show you what the Domino application look like. So here is the the Domino Notes client, and you can see in the form there are 7 documents right now with titles such as RCD, Golden Tee, Lilies, Project Themes, Colosseum, Underwater Drone, and Sonar Domes development. And you can, you know, double click to see the actual detail of one of the documents. So at the top, is a identification subpart, right? And then all the submittal that make up this contract. And for example, as a rich text submittal letter, we can view that file attachment. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so an example of a letter. All right. Now, going back to the form view, you can see that there are several different other domino views. In addition to each one of the document has a status. So whether it's rejected, pending, right? And also note that the key to event for each one of these documents, especially monthly and quarterly versus other one, okay? And also, I'm going to show you the designer view. So this is the Domino designer, and you can see all the forms and all the views. But what more important to me is that there are 6 different agents here, and looking at one of the agent, for example, this one create new monthly. It's tied to one of those key event, right? Any document with monthly or quarterly, it creates a new one when this agent is run, okay? So what's important about this is that we also need to show the ability for a Voimax application to trigger Domino agent, okay? All right, now, so that's the story, that's what they gave us, and they gave us the challenge. So one of the step that we're gonna go through is, of course, expose this to our Domino REST API. And then after that, I will use Voimax Go design import to create the initial web application, okay? So stepping back through here, and first I'm gonna give you a glimpse of the, this is the final product, right? But going through design import, the output of design import, including all the Vault Foundry assets, the ability to do OAuth, identity service, and also the Domino adapter in order to exchange data and the application. But here is a output of the design import. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and to show you that it's the output of the design import is an actual working application. All right. Okay, so this tells me I'm logged in, and you can see here, all the Domino views, including the Domino form, right? And when I click on the view, I should see the same list of documents here: RCD, Golden Tea, Lilies, project names, etc. Right? And if I want to, it also provides me all the logic and all the scripting in order to see the detail, the ability to delete, the ability to create new documents. Okay, so this output of design import would save me a lot of time, right? Because I don't have to recreate all these from scratch. So the next step is, after going through design import, getting this baseline application, is the ability to modernize the actual application itself. Okay, now before I show you the final product, let me step you through Vault Iris. So here you can see the some of the screen that you will see, the ability to list document, this compatible view against Domino clients, right? List document, the ability to show a detailed view of one of the document, and also the login screen you see here, right? So now you can see that it is responsive. We can make it responsive, whether it's mobile, tablet, or full-size desktop, as you can see here. Okay, all right. So enough for that. Let's actually go through the final product. Now, one of these challenges was any of the media asset will have to come from a remote source, so that we can avoid having to clone and duplicate. So, for example, this video comes from YouTube. It's a remote source, right? So we show that we can meet that challenge in order to reuse their assets versus having to duplicate on ours. Okay. Now, just log it in, going through our identity service provided by Domino REST API. Okay, logging in. Okay, I have successful login, hit OK. And one of the first things you see here is this ability to list all the Domino documents, all the contracts, right? And nicely coded according to the status. Okay, status versus status here. Okay. Then when I double clicked to get inside to see a detailed view, and you see the detailed view, here's the ID summation at the top, right? And all the relevant information that make up the contract. So the ability to, for example, examine rich text document and also see the inside of a file attachment, right? So that same file that you saw here is here, right? And the other ones. So for example, this is a rich text. So those with that is not a rich text, they just show the content as opposed to give you that little icon in order to see the actual file content. Okay. And you also have the ability to create new contract with that option, or click on any one of these. You can edit, right? It will bring up a blank screen, allow you to edit. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to show you next is the ability to trigger a Domino agent. So do recall that one of the agent was, examining documents with monthly or quarterly, and it will trigger the agent in order to create new documents based on these two events, right? So here I have a run agent. I can click on that, and it will trigger that Domino agent. And then you can see here immediately, after the 7th, there's the 8th and 9th, which are the two new document that was created. And so at the same time, I can go back to the notes client and refresh, and you can see here it's creating two new ones, right? Based on those with quarterly or monthly Q2 event. And you can see that they are there, right? And then just to show you, we can also delete this document. So I'm going to just delete the two new one. Delete. Okay, go away. And we're back to 7. So I can come back here and also refresh, and you see that those two are gone. Okay, so it's that same Domino database is being used by both of these applications. Okay, but now you can see this is a modernized and a standard Domino application, right? Nicely color coded, the ability to richly enhance what the users see, and also we can do a lot more with those information from the back end, right? For example, here I can show you the dashboard and taking Domino data from the back and combine them into a metrics dashboard view. And also these are all interactive, right? You can look at see what the breakdowns are, things like that, or see the contracts as they are coming from each different country, each different region. Okay. Now, one more thing is that to show the Foundry ability to integrate with multiple backend, not just Domino, but any backend, for example, like ChatGPT here. So if you wish to enhance your application with the ability to use AI in order to help your user, for example, if I have a question like, how long is a typical contract? Okay, and let's see what ChatGPT come back with. Okay, contract can be as short as 1 or 2 pages, okay, and can go from months to many years, right? So the ability to greatly enhance your application with additional capability, that you can find, in the world, or you develop yourself, right? So all that's there. And then note that this is a speech-to-text component from our marketplace, and so it's you can download that and combine into your application to develop and greatly enhance your application. Okay. Now, so when we show this to the customer, what was their what was their feedback? So one of the first things they say was, "Wow, this is amazing! How did you do this?" I'd say, "Well, we save a lot of time by going through VoMX Go, using the design import, creating that baseline application, right? And then just using that baseline application, going through Iris, greatly modernize and enhance that user experience that you can provide to your end user." Okay, right? And then last question is, how long did this take? It took me about 3 days to do all this, right? To go through the design import, and then updating and creating a more beautiful apps using Volt Iris. Okay, so that is an example of a real world journey, taking an existing Domino application, modernizing with VoMX Go. Back to you, Gandhar.
All right, thank you, Dai. We appreciate that. 3 days, that's really quick. All right. So some of the value out of that application, as Dai mentioned, the ability to use components and pre-built components from a UI perspective, as well as services, really sped up the development for that application. The design import alone, having it be able to go in and introspect into that Domino data and generate those forms right off the top without requiring a developer to build them from scratch, it really creates a significant time savings when it comes to development. We're estimating probably about 60%. Not only that, but Dai showed the ability to bring in additional features such as visual charts, being able to color code items based on the status, bringing in AI services through ChatGPT, features like this that normal Domino applications may not be able to leverage. And so being able to bring those in and then also deliver it in the context of a progressive web application, which is a modern UI paradigm very commonly used nowadays, leveraging that Domino REST API, and then being able to save time through the use of components really provides a lot of value for our customers. All right, next up, we've got Keith, who's going to take us through his health and safety inspection application. So I'll hand it over to Keith.
Thank you, Gundar. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So we got a request from one of our customers. They had a health and safety application that they had built on their Domino environment, and there was a number of reports that they utilized within their application. For instance, this is screenshots of the application within their Domino. So they have incident reports, inspection reports, internal audit reports, and safety violation forms. And they wanted us to modernize the look and feel of these applications. And one of the things they asked us to do was to put the application on the user's mobile devices, because the users are out in the field, they're performing their inspections, and it would be a lot easier for them if they had a mobile application in their hands that they're able to fill out this information. So we went ahead, we implemented their NSF into our systems, and we built this application right here, which is the Acropolis Equipment Health and Safety application. So like Dai has shown, we have our log on screen here, and in this case with the mobile app, we've embedded the Domino login inside of the log on screen. So I can click on here and get myself into my application, and it pulls back all the reports that my user has already created. So the user has the ability to create safety violations and inspection reports, incident reports, internal audits, just like they had in their Domino application. But I have created a number of inspection reports. So I can go in and we can take a look at how the inspection report looks now in comparison to how it used to look in the Domino application. So these are the initial fields, the open information. This information is the same information up here. So it has defaulted, calculated by Domino. So it's not changeable within the application. But the next screen is where the user can actually start to fill in their information. As you can see, we've got, instead of having one screen, we're using the mobile framework. We broke it up into 3 individual screens. And we can see here the full path that we're expecting the users to fill out. Each one of these, we have the user can go ahead and choose where they're going to work, select workspace and city, and this information all comes out of their Domino system. Once I'm happy with this information here, I can go ahead and I can record my observations, add in some comments, and one of the features that a native mobile application gives you is we're able to use many of the, well, all of the native device features. So for instance, I want to take a photograph. And I can add a photograph to my inspection report, and multiple photographs if I want, and send it up to Domino. So how does this all work? How do we get the information from Domino? What are the steps that are done to allow us to build this application? It all starts in Domino and the new Domino REST API administration. So this came with Domino version 12.02, and it allows us to expose our Domino databases as RESTful services that can be consumed. So for instance, with my application, I have created this schema right here. It's the EHS new schema. And in here, we can see that we have many forms, but the customer only wanted 4. Disciplinary action, initial accident. So for my requirements, I've only exposed these 4 forms. The other 51 forms that are part of the EHS solution are not exposed. The views, I've exposed most of the views, and the agents as well. You can select if you want to expose agents. With the forms as well, you can get very granular on what you allow the users to be able to do to these forms. So for instance, if I go in here, I can see the list of fields which are available. I can add those fields into, so I can pick and choose which fields are going to be exposed. And on top of that, I can go ahead, say here with the person string, I can go ahead and decide whether this field is going to be read write or read only or write only. So for the Domino administrator, you have a lot of control right down to the field level on how your Domino databases are being exposed to the REST API. Once you have your schema set up, the next thing you need to do is create your scope. The scope is where you set your maximum access level, and here we are referencing the schema that we already designed. Finally, we create the application. So the application here, we can go in and look at the details. We can specify what scopes we're going to use and who to contact. And also we get our app ID, and I'll show you just in a few seconds where this app ID is used. So we now have our application. We're ready to go. It has been exposed. We've exposed our 4 forms and our views and any agents. The next bit we have in here is the VoltMX Foundry. So Foundry is the middleware component for VoltMX. It's what allows us to connect to any type of backend system. In connecting to the Domino REST API, we're going to use an OAuth 2 identity type, which has been set up here. So if I set the identity service as OAuth 2, and I get these configuration options when I have OAuth 2. So I give the authorization endpoint. So this is the URL for my Domino environment and the end token. I give the scope, which I have set in the Domino REST API. The app ID is my client ID here, and I also need a client secret. And the client secret is received by clicking on this generate application secret. So that will generate a secret, which I will place in here. Also as well, in the Domino, we have our callback URL. So this is generated by Foundry. So we can copy that, and actually we place this URL in here inside a Domino. So Foundry now has the information on how to call the Domino environment, and Domino has now the information on how to call back the Foundry environment. Once we have this all set up and we've tested it, next we go to the objects. So in my objects here, I have an object type which is HCL Domino. So this object service is specifically created for connecting to the HCL Domino REST API. Once again, we give the Domino URL, and the rest of the information we're going to take out of the identity provider that we've already provided. So I've given all the details, the scope and everything inside our identity provider. So I'm going to utilize that information and just set the identity provider here. Once I have my identity, once I have my object created, this will be empty here, but I'll have a generate button. What the generate does is it will log on to the Domino environment, and it will look to see what is available within the scope that we have access to. So here's my scope that we provided. Here's all the views which have been exposed, and of course my 4 forms. And if I was to select these and hit next, it then gives me the option to generate. Now I've already pre-generated, as you can see here. What gets generated is the full data model for these forms inside of Foundry. So for inspection report, which we've seen, click on fields, and here are all the fields. So these are all the fields pulled directly out of Domino. And that gets built for me, generated for me automatically. Also, the mapping to Domino also gets generated for me automatically. And all the services that I require, the get service, post for creating, create binaries, get binaries, all the services that I need that are exposed by the Domino REST API are automatically generated for me inside of Foundry using the generate button. So now we have all of our services. We have our authentication. We're all set up in Foundry. How do we then use that and build the application? So here in Iris here, for example, we have the table where we are showing the list of documents we've already created. On that table, if I was to click on a row, we have an action right here. So on row of this screen table, we can provide an action. Inside this action, we again, using the low code drag and drop action editor, we can specify what it is that happens when you click on the row of that table. In this case, I'm going to invoke the service which is being provided by Foundry. So here's our inspection report, and I'm performing the get, and I'm also getting the ID number from the screen table and inputting it into the service. So I'm performing the mapping here as well. So this is how in Iris you use the action editor to call the services that have been generated inside of Foundry, which have been exposed by the Domino REST API. Okay, Gunda, back to you.
All right, thank you, Keith. All right, following up on that, that was a great looking app. I mean, this is an example of being able to take something that's normally potentially a back office app and really give it out to those users on the edge to help them get their business done much more efficiently. Being able to put that in the hands of a user on a mobile device, being able to leverage the capabilities of that device to enhance that app input. So being able to take those pictures, you might need to get location information off of that inspector to determine what site they're at, what vehicle they're working on. what they have to perform and be able to rapidly get that data entry input into the app. Using things like components, having screens generated, this can help speed up that data entry, helps reduce your errors, inconsistencies. And because it's built on VoltMX, we support the latest and greatest mobile operating systems. So when users are out there on their iPhones or Android devices, they don't have to worry about what's going to happen when they upgrade over the weekend. That app will continue to function. And at the same time, we're leveraging that REST API in the back end. So all of that data, in addition, if there's workflow back there, we can leverage that Domino workflow in addition to just data transactions. So that way it helps manage and deliver that Domino application out to the edge for users on the latest and greatest devices. All right, next up is Mario, who's going to take us through his demonstration of the training scheduler application that he's built. And Mario, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Gander. So let me show my screen, and here it is. Okay, and you can see the starting page of the Parthenon training application. Parthenon Training is a fictitious training company which organizes training in presence in different locations. So this application manages different roles. So there is the administrator, this person here, and there is also a list of users that may log to the application and see let's say, a personalized view of the application itself. So let us start with the administrator that logs to the application and ends up in a screen where is it going there? Okay, so there is a there is a calendar view of the training. So there is a calendar on the left where we can see the different courses, different sessions for the courses, and in the right pane we see all the sessions that are scheduling starting this date, so the 20th of September. If I want to see, for instance, the courses after the 5th of October, I can click over here and just see the view from this date on. And in this list, of course, each course has a status, so it can be open if students can still enroll in the class, or it is closed if it is not possible. And it is not possible to enroll in a class, for instance, if the registration date has passed over, or if the maximum number of participants has been reached. So in this case, we have 4 participants to the course, and so the course is closed. The administrator may manage the list of participants, so it may, for instance, remove a participant to a class, and in this case, the system refreshes and sets the status of the course to open. We also have a view of the different sessions from this view over here, where we have the session that we may filter. So we have a filter here. So we are seeing the courses filtered by open status. We can remove this filter so that we can see all the classes. We can filter, for instance, by training location. There is no course scheduled in this training location, so let us try another one. Let us try this one. Here we have 4 courses. We can add different criteria to the filter until we can get the information that we need. And if we click over here, we end up in the same form that we have seen before. So the list of students registered to the class. We also have the view by participant. So here there is the list of students which are enrolled to the Parthenon training company, And for each student, we may see what are the classes to which the student is registered. So Mary has completed these two classes, the beginner Voltemex Aris and the Voltemex Foundry, and is currently registered for this class over here, the Introduction to Power Up. So we can manage the registrations, and for instance, we can add Mary to another class. There is an available session, so we can pick up this session, and now Mary is enrolled also in this. It is also enrolled in this class. Let me mention that we also have the list of locations. So we can, and for each location, we can see where the location is actually located. We have a pin over here. This is in Broadway, New York City. So in here is the exact location in Albany, not in New York City, in Albany. And here is the pin to the location, so we can create a new location if you want. Okay, so let me mention that this application is component-based. It is strongly component-based. I would say there are 43 reusable components that constitute the building block of this application. And between this component, let me mention the calendar that is a reusable component. It might be very useful. We also have a time widget where we can select the time. Using the calendar widget, we have a calendar widget that uses the same view. That is, and all these components are available in the marketplace. Another characteristic of this application is that it is multi-language. So we have leveraged the ability we have with Voltemex to build easily a multi-language application. So here we have a user profile, and this guy has an English view of the application, but we may change the language, for instance, into French, and the application reloads. And you see, we have administrateur, profil utilisateur, we have the view in French of the same application. So here we have with the calendar and so on. And then I was mentioning that we also have the final user view. So before we have worked with Mary profile, so we can log in as Mary to the application, and Mary can see the list of sessions, and in particular the session to which she's enrolled. And again, we can filter this session. So if we are interested in that, we can see only the session to which she's enrolled, or we can also see the session which are opened, so that just in case Mary can enroll to this class. And Mary also have the calendar view, where she has a view for the courses that she has completed in dark blue, and the one to which she is enrolled. Okay, so this is the application, and this is a sample of this is a fully functional application. It's a beautiful application that is built over a Domino backend, and that demonstrates that we can actually build something nice using the connection between Voltemex and Domino. Okay, Gander, I'm done. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Mario. Appreciate that. Very nice looking application. All right, and just to kind of wrap up what Mario reviewed, it was a really nice application, provided a very robust ability to go ahead and set up training sessions, both from an administrator as well as a student point of view. Again, there was really no data entry other than date time picking. So being able to have that automated data just provided, again, reduces errors, inconsistencies. And as Mario mentioned, he used a significant amount of components. So rather than having to create every one of those UI layouts from scratch with individual widgets, he was able to reuse component after component after component to speed up the time of development for that. And again, leveraging the capabilities of Volt Foundry to rapidly get into that Domino data and make it available, you can provide a really nice modern looking UI and user experience for those end users who are going to be using that app. And so just a couple of points that the team really wanted to highlight is the fact that if you're going to be going through this journey of modernizing your Domino app, it's good to plan ahead. Figure out what forms you need to get reproduced, what kind of views of data you need to access, and if there's any agents that you intend to use in that application. From there, you want to design import really only what you need, because if you take and as Keith showed, there's a large amount of data that might be available. Well, you don't need to go in and completely design import everything. You have the ability to go in and selectively choose the ones you want and be able to bring that into your Iris environment and then start to enhance them from there. We do reuse logic and event logic and handlers from design import, so that way you don't have to develop these from scratch. And if you plan on using agents, go ahead and prepare ahead, because the trigger is not necessarily tied to the Domino REST API. You will actually need to do some Foundry XML configuration services, integration services in order to go and access those agents. But again, it's all done without writing code. You just simply create an XML service and link it to that agent with our connector, and you're able to get moving right away. And then as Mario showed, having those components, as everyone showed, just using components, being able to put those screens together and lay them out in a very nice, clean, modern fashion, using components really saves on the overall development effort. So that pretty much wraps up our the bulk of our presentation. But as I mentioned before, there's more to come. Our next deep dive webinar next Wednesday is going to cover an early look at what's coming up with Volt Script. So if you're already registered for the series, you'll be getting an email reminder over the next few days to provide you the details with that. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to share this with colleagues, there's the QR code here on the left that you can use to share with your teammates, and they can go out and register for themselves. And then if you want to actually try and start to play with the tool set, you have the ability to go ahead and try out VoltMX Go through the HCL Sophie environment, now live. Now that's available through the QR code on the right that will take you through the links to go ahead and get started with that process and be able to start to really take your journey down modernizing your application experience. So with that, we've seen some questions come in, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the questions. If you think of any right now, go ahead and drop them in the questions panel and not the chat panel. And I'm going to go ahead and start down the list and then open that up to the team to respond to. First, is there any reason to use Domino as a backend for new applications, basically for those not converted from existing Domino applications? I'll open that up to the team, and who wants to respond to that?
Hey Gandhar, this is Suhas. I can take that question. So you can look at it in two ways. If you're building a brand new application, you can have the data pulled from multiple sources. Domino could be one if you're having it there, or if you're trying to pull from anything else, Salesforce, database, REST APIs, it could be built off of anything. VoltMX Go, though, does provide very close integration with Domino. So if you're already having expertise in Domino, you want to leverage that, you can very well use that for the new applications too. As you have seen, the design imports and agents and Volt formula, which lets you reuse at formula, will give you a lot of advantage. But at its core, MX is integratable with a lot of different backends.
All right, thank you, Suhas. Next question, is there any plan to remove the keep permission needed allow or deny page that appears after the login? It seems like it's an extra step that users have to go through, and if there's a way that we can help automate that login authentication process. Anybody want to take that on?
Um,
So I'll go ahead and chime in from an engineering perspective, then you can talk about the product positioning. How's that, Suhas?
sure, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so this is Michael Alexander, and the answer sort of in general is that's the typical pattern we're using now to help really drive home and demonstrate that this is the Domino authentication to Domino-based directory, and you have full control over it. From an OAuth perspective, yes, there are mechanisms to have it persist that grant so that you don't have to keep doing the grant. From an automation perspective, you could change the dance so that you don't actually have to do the grant in the first place. You could implicitly accept it given certain constraints. So yes, there are ways to do it, but it is actually there specifically to help really reinforce and make sure that, especially for those of you who keep your user registries in Domino, that you know that you can use the user registry in Domino as it exists today. So Suhas, do you want to comment on direction?
No, I think you covered it, Michael.
All right, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Suhas. Another question, can you describe the Volta-MX Go design import again? Just a quick high level overview, how that process works. Anyone?
So, Dai, are you going to cover that?
Dai, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, so it is a three-step process. First, you want to expose your Domino application to the Domino REST API. Then secondly, you will want to leverage the design import of Volta-MX Go in order to, it automatically generate all the Foundry assets. For example, like the identity OAuth that you saw and the object service, the Domino adapter in order to interface with Domino backend. And also it will create that Iris baseline web application, giving you a working application in order to exchange data with Domino. So you want to do those two. And then finally, you will go back into Iris and update and rebrand that baseline web application from design import into something that much more friendly to your user, and also extend the current application with other capabilities like ChatGPT, like interface with different APIs, or even other backends. So that's the three-step process.
Okay, thank you, Dai. How does exactly Volt-MX Go trigger a Domino agent? Can you describe a little bit about how that works? Because I know you mentioned it earlier, and just maybe a little bit more detail around that.
Okay, I can cover that. So a Domino agent is triggered. One way is a Foundry XML integration service that you can create, and you can set it to the the Domino REST API that access or have access to the agent. And then finally, from your Iris application, it's just a button that trigger that operation in Foundry, which then trigger the Domino agent. So that's one way. Another way is, of course, you can use the built-in browser of Iris in order to trigger the Domino agent. So there are various options, but of course, leveraging the capability of Foundry and create a service so that you can reuse that service, with this application or with other application, and be able to reuse, reshare with all your team members.
Okay, thank you, Dai.
Hey, Michael, do you want to add something to that?
Sure, I will go ahead. Since we referenced it on other calls, I will say that that is the perfect answer for today's state of the art. And in the future, there are other things, because adding a new XML service and doing this other work that requires you to learn stuff about Foundry, that some places that might be daunting. So we do recognize that there are opportunities to make that easier. And you've seen in design import the ability to import agents, the ability to call agents remotely without extra configuration is something that we're working on. But Dai's answer is spot on. For today, you can actually do anything, and the flexibility does actually allow you to make more generalized agents that you might currently just have duplicated into a number of databases, for example.
Okay, thank you, Michael. On which platforms can VoltMX Go be used?
Hey, this is Suhas. I'll take that. So the question is multifaceted, or I'll try to answer it in different, perspective. One, from the application developer, you can build the application. Volt Iris runs on macOS and Windows. So as a developer, it runs on those platforms. The Foundry instance itself can run on a J2EE server, so that can be Kubernetes, it could be private cloud, it could be our SaaS cloud, it runs on Linux, it runs on Windows, it can run anywhere. Now from the applications that you're building with VoltMX Go, it can target, by definition, MX is multi-experience, so it lets you build for iPhone, Android, for phone, for tablet. You can build desktop apps and desktop web. You can build responsive web, as we showed today. We also can build PWA, which is progressive web apps. And you also can, in a near future version, build apps for desktop native apps for macOS and Windows also from Go.
Okay, thank you,
Sorry,
Suhas.
smartwatches. I forgot about smartwatches. You can build apps for smartwatches, like your Apple Watch, Google Watch, and all those stuff, as well as anything that interfaces an API. So even IoTs you can build for that.
Excellent, thank you. We talked about components quite a bit in a couple of these applications. What does it really take to create a component in Volt Iris?
I can take this one. It depends. It depends on the complexity of the component, obviously. So it might be something easy or something extremely complex. So a component can be let's say, an edit field, a text field with particular feature, or can be a wrapper for many other components. So typically, it doesn't take too much. The advantage of having component is that one it is exactly like the advantage of writing a function when coding. So it is good to have to put together some functionalities which are exposed as from a black box. That is the component. So let's say the time that it takes to build a component depends definitely on the complexity of the component, but typically it's not something difficult. It is quite an easy exercise.
Yeah, the process is done within Volt Iris, and it's typically just drag and drop widgets onto the designer surface. And then as you organize these widgets, like Mario mentioned, it may be something simple like a label in a text entry field, or it could be something more complex like the calendar widget that you saw earlier. The benefit of which is that these components can be used across channels. So once you define a component, you don't have to limit yourself to only doing it for web, for example, or only for a native phone. Those components can be defined once and then used across all outputs as you need them.
And one other thing with components is you can also share them on the marketplace and let everybody else use it too.
Yep. Okay, let's see, we've got another one here. Will this recording be published on YouTube?
Yes, as part of the webinar series, every webinar is recorded and it will be available on YouTube.
Okay. And is there a way to get an existing Domino application login using Azure Active Directory or single sign-on to use from a Foundry web app as with Domino as the backend, since apparently OAuth is available, but are there other authentication options for the REST API?
So I'll hop in and take that. Yes, and in the sense that you would actually use the authentication source. Ideally, in this scenario, I think the question is getting to, you'd want to use the Azure AAD, the directory, if you will, as your authenticating source, and then have Domino trust it. So you're still using OAuth, but you're not going through Domino to get it. If you're looking at using Domino, but having still had the Domino arrangement where Domino is the IDP and having Domino as the provider in that arrangement go out to the external source, that is doable with what we've been showing. If you wanted to flip that and have Foundry trust the directory and set up the authentication through Azure Active Directory, and then have Domino trust that so the identity is passed through that way, that's also possible.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I think that takes us to the last of our questions. So with that, we've got about 2 minutes left. Go ahead and wrap it up. I hope this is an informative session for everybody. Thank you all for attending today. I know your time is precious, and we really do appreciate you taking your time to spend with us. I hope you're leaving with a better understanding of some of the things that are possible with Voltimex Go and how you can really develop nice, rich user experiences using Voltimex Go tied to your existing Domino applications. And if you'd like to learn more about Voltimex Go and get connected with one of our sales folks or a business partner, there's a QR code here that you can scan and takes you to a registration form that allows you to link up with us, and we'll have someone in touch with you. We'll make the other recordings available as well, so keep an eye out for that. And once again, thank you very much for attending, and we hope you have a wonderful day.